is Chris Gartman, and I'm a senior attorney with Miller Canfield in Grand Rapids. I joined the firm about 3 years ago. I've been asked to talk about immigrants in my life, as well as my own immigration experience. Currently, I'm working with 2 people who recently immigrated to the United States. About 1 year ago, this is a husband and wife couple. He is from Brazil and she is from Italy. They met while working together in Munich, Germany. In line with their adventurous spirit, they decided that they were going to immigrate to the United States and apply for a visa based on investing in an American business. They found a brewery and restaurant in Wyoming, just south of Grand Rapids, to purchase. Now, their visa is connected to their investment in the business, and their visa is the permission from the United States government for them to live and to work in this country. So the business purchase is very important to them. If the business purchase were to fall through and they don't have another opportunity immediately ready, they may have to leave the country because their visa would expire because the business deal goes through or does not go through. They have been running the business as if it were their own for a few months now, preparing to close on the purchase. And I know that they've really enjoyed getting to know the customers and that they've really enjoyed the creative opportunities that running a restaurant affords you. Given their adventurous spirit, I suspect they are enjoying their new challenges in Michigan. But it's not all been easy. There have been some bumps in the road. For example, in order to get the proper licenses to run a restaurant, you have to have a driver's license and provide a driver's license number. Now, in order to get a driver's license, you need a social security number. In order to get a social security number, you need to have a permanent residence. So you can see all the little things that we may take for granted just living in the United States and being situated here, that an immigrant has to go out and pull all of these pieces together. So all of those aspects can be quite challenging and do take some time. Being married to each other, I think it's very helpful that they have one another to rely on, so that no one person has to take care of all of the responsibilities related to the immigration process. But since a fellow from Brazil met an Italian gal in Germany, they've clearly been through the process before and are prepared to deal with it. They should be closing on the transaction this summer and would then lock in more or less a permanent visa. So they're looking very forward to that. I also have an immigration experience of my own. In 2015, my wife had an opportunity to transfer within her company to be based in London, England for 3 years. After some, very little discussion, we committed to making the move, sold our vehicles, sold other personal property, put some things in storage, packed up some clothes, packed up our dog, and we made the move. Before we moved, we had to apply for our own visas. This process, I will tell you, is very detailed and very time-consuming. We worked on it nearly daily for about 30 days, from the time that we first submitted the documentation until the time that we got a final decision. It was very close to the date of our plane tickets to leave the country, but we were able to get it done just in time. When we arrived in London, our first apartment was right in the middle of London's financial district. Lots of tall buildings, lots of people come here to work every day. And right on cue, there's our dog barking because this first example has to do with our dog. Being such a busy part of town, there's not a lot of green space, and our apartment certainly did not have a garden or a yard or anything like that. So it took me, believe it or not, 3 or 4 days just to find a patch of grass that I could let the dog run around and just enjoy being a dog. So that was one little challenge that I've never had before. Living in your typical American city, you're going to at least have a sidewalk with some green grass nearby, or parks that you can walk to. We had other challenges with just the simplest of tasks, being newcomers to the country. For example, it took me 3 or 4 days just to figure out how to get a telephone number. Because in order to get a telephone number, I needed to demonstrate all my banking records and that I had an apartment, and we hadn't received any mail at the apartment yet, so I didn't have any mailing from utility companies or from the bank yet. So that was a bit of a runaround just to figure out how to get a phone number. But eventually we did it. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, moving to England, at least you don't have to worry about the language, right? You don't need to learn to read, speak, and write a new language. Now it's certainly true that they speak English in England, but the Queen's English, as they refer to it, is certainly a different kind of English than we speak in America. I could not possibly count the amount of times that I had to say to people, "I'm sorry, what?" Or, "Could you please repeat that?" Fortunately, most people were very understanding, poking a bit of fun at American English along the way. And over the course of our time there, my vocabulary blossomed, and I learned all kinds of new words for things that just aren't used commonly here. There were some other everyday basics that we had to just figure out on the fly. For example, how do I get set up with a doctor's office? Who do I call? What website do I visit? Where do I show up? How do I get there? Why are there so many street numbers here? Why does lots of little questions like that? How do I get a reservation at a restaurant? Why do I need one everywhere I go? Well, it turns out in a city that has about 10 million people in it, everybody wants to eat at some point, and it's tough to even get a table at a local pizza joint if you don't have a reservation. One funny bit about going to the grocery store that we had to learn the hard way was, where do we find the eggs? We assumed on our first trip to the grocery store that, getting ready to make breakfast the next day, that we would go to the cooler next to the milk and we would find the eggs. We circled the dairy department for a while, checking all the coolers. Certainly didn't think to ask someone where the eggs were because it was so obvious that they would be next to the milk. Turns out in England, the eggs are kept on the shelf next to the cereal. They're not kept in the cooler. So that's your one bit of English culture for the day, I suppose, that in the grocery store they don't keep the eggs cold. Another small or perhaps major difference is that our family did not have a car, but we didn't need one. Between bicycles and buses and trains and the subway, we had all the transportation that we really needed. Plus, being such an old city and many other older cities, they were designed before automobiles. So they're designed to be much more walkable. We never really had to go far to go get lost in the grocery store looking for eggs, or go buy food for the dog from the pet store, or get a new light bulb from the hardware store. All of those things were very close, and we could walk most places where we needed to go to buy things just for daily life. I think the best part about our experience in London is that London is very multicultural. On a daily basis, you're going to interact with people from all over the world. For example, after some time, I found work of my own, and I was one of 2 Americans at the company that I worked for. Besides my English colleagues, I had colleagues from Poland, from Finland, Italy, Sweden, Russia, Ireland, and Australia. So in addition to doing our daily tasks, conversation often was surrounded by and discussed growing up. What's it like to grow up in America? And I would share some stories about tell me what it's like to grow up in Finland. You know, what do you eat at Christmas time? So you can just imagine all the stories that get shared when you're around such a diverse set of people like that on a daily basis. So our experience in England was for 3 years, and I would suspect that a lot of immigrants have a similar year 1, year 2, year 3 like we did. And what I mean by that is, in year 1, you're just confused by everything. You're trying to figure out how daily life works, and you're learning some things the hard way, and some things come easier than others. In year 2, you start getting used to all those things, and daily life slowly becomes more normal. And by year 3, just about everything feels normal, and we were really starting to feel like home. But our visa was running out because my wife's employment, her need is rotated. So someone else was coming to take her place, and we were going to return to the United States. And that's when we moved to Michigan. To conclude, just a little suggestion. You know, if you ever get an opportunity to visit another country, or even live or work there, or go to school in another country, I certainly recommend you take the opportunity to do so. Seriously consider it, because you really never know what sort of experiences you're going to have when you put yourself into another culture. And I think it's very important to be aware of immigrants that you interact with in Michigan, because they are going through a challenging experience. They're having to learn lots of new things on a daily basis, and many are having to learn to read, write, and speak English along the way. So anytime you get a chance to make them feel more comfortable or at home, I definitely recommend you do that. I hope you enjoyed my discussion about my work with immigrants and my own immigration experience. I'm sure you'll have a discussion among yourselves of immigrants that you know, or if any of you have your own immigration experience. There's certainly a lot to discuss there. Have a good day.